the whole EVS is like filled with interesting topics, but here on stage we were going to talk about data, about autonomous driving, the next thing, even EV charging. So, you know, I think we give them a lot of good stuff.
Tools.
But I should say also that yesterday it was a bit of a Swedish day. Now we're going to go to a more European perspective as well. And I would like to introduce our next speaker, but he's not here. He's in Brussels, and we're going to have this like Eurovision-like, I hope. He will be on screen televoting.
But then not manipulated.
So maybe Mr. Jan DUSIK, are you there?
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you very well. How are you in Brussels?
Excellent. I'm actually not in Brussels. I'm in Geneva today. I wanted to be with you in Göteborg, but I couldn't be in two places at the same time. I'm talking to at the World Economic Forum to the First Movers Coalition, so also on a good purpose and somewhat related to what you are discussing over there. So happy to be with you at least like this on the screen.
Oh, I love it. Well, I would like to introduce him. He is Jan DUSIK. He is the Deputy Director General of the DG Clima, which is the European Commission's Directorate General for Climate Action. And he's working for the good cause. So, Mr. Jan DUSIK, you've got a great message for us. If you speak slowly, because there's a bit of an echo, if you speak slowly, please give us all the information. We've got a room full of evangelists here.
That's excellent. Thank you. And good morning again. I want to say that we are in the European Commission, we are very busy with fulfilling the mandate for climate neutrality of Europe by 2050. And that goes through the milestone of 2030, where we already have legislation, then through all the way through to 2040. We will be soon proposing a European target of 90% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2040, and then towards climate neutrality. And of course, this is an important and not easy challenge. Basically, we are saying whatever can be electrified should be electrified as the best available solution. And we also know that if we are smart about electrification, we can bring down the energy prices in Europe, and we can also address the topic of the energy security and economic security in the EU, because these are things which are on the agenda of politicians. And while, of course, we are talking about the impacts that climate change is having and will be having increasingly, we are connecting it very much to the economic and security agenda that dominates the debates in Europe. We know that transport is a major source of emissions, and it is a relatively growing source of emission. As we decarbonize energy, as we are decarbonizing industries, transport is something that needs to catch up. And of course, this is not only true for cars, for personal cars, for trucks, but also for ships and for planes. And that's why we are including all parts of transport into the European legislation. And this is also why we are working with global partners on setting global standards for emission reductions. An example of this would be the discussions in the International Maritime Organization about the new targets and new financial instruments to decarbonize shipping. But I'm not going to talk about shipping here because you are not dealing with shipping in principle. I want to talk a bit about the situation in the automotive sector. And we know that there is a lot of debate in Europe about the future of the automotive sector, the competitiveness vis-à-vis global competitors. And what we have built over the past months is to strengthen the business case for a decarbonization of the automotive sector. This all started with the Draghi report going into the Clean Industrial Deal that was adopted by the Commission in February, and also the Industrial Action Plan for the automotive sector that we have adopted on the 5th of March. And basically, it's not just looking at the emissions and how to reduce them, but overall how to make sure that the automotive sector in Europe is able to operate. So looking at what are the potentials in innovation, in digital technologies, how to deal with the clean mobility shift, how to deal with the supply chain resilience, how we can build more the skills, how we can deal with the social aspects, and overall how to ensure a level playing field for the automotive industry. This is not a one-off action. It will continue. The second dialogue, strategic dialogue with the automotive industry is planned for right after the summer. So that's mainly on the side of the personal cars, but it is also related to trucks, of course. When it comes to the personal cars, this will be a major task to ensure that we are able to transition, and so that this transition will be socially acceptable. We know that the political discourse is challenging, and that's why the whole transition in the sector that is framed by the emission trading system, so-called ETS2, is also accompanied by the Social Climate Fund as a new instrument that was established, and that will gather together almost 87 billion euros to support a socially just transition in transport and buildings. And we are busy with the member states working on their social climate plans, and the transition, the support to households, especially the vulnerable ones, is at the center of it. And when we talk about the cars, it's not just about purchasing new electric cars. It's also about the second-hand electromobiles. It's also about other clean services in transportation. So we take a holistic perspective on that. When we talk about the heavy-duty vehicles or trucks, we also have targets which go all the way to 85% reduction by 2040. And we expect that most of the zero-emission vehicles will be actually electric. So again, we see electrification as the main force. And there is a range of instruments that support this transition. It is the alternative fuels infrastructure regulation that sets the requirements for the refilling and recharging network. It is the Eurovignette rules, which reduces the road tolls for heavy-duty vehicles, and the recent Commission proposal is to actually the ability to reduce these road tolls by up to 100%. It is also the weights and dimension directive to take into consideration the weight allowances for the zero-emission vehicles. And obviously, it is the emission trading scheme that will make the fossil fuels more expensive and will finance the transition as well. I mentioned the infrastructure rollout, and this is of course important feature that needs to accompany the whole revolution in the vehicles, and we are working with the member states on the implementation of the requirements, and to make sure that this goes in sync, and that the infrastructure is not lagging behind. I would mention two more things. One is on finance. We have had great success in supporting the batteries industry. We have the innovation fund that is also financed from the emission trading system, and we have together put up a battery booster, which is looking at how we can faster produce batteries in Europe and how we can advance the transition. And the Industrial Decarbonization Bank that was launched as part of the Green Industrial Deal is something that hopefully will bring additional resources to innovation, to scaling up, and to speeding up the transition. But of course, all that is contingent upon the demand side, upon the fact that people will be willing to transition. They will be buying the new clean cars, and we are looking into that as well. We are looking at how the corporate fleets, how the public sector fleets, how they can boost the demand, and also, of course, how we can how that can boost the investment into the innovation, and how it can support the predictability. So all in all, there is a lot happening in the sector, and I'm sure that you will have many discussions about the successes and the challenges and resolving them. But my message today is that in the EU, the Commission is staying the course. We know that transforming our transportation into a clean one is a necessity. It's part of us achieving the climate neutrality, and it is also very much possible. And we need to see how we can help. How we can enable that transition in the fastest possible way, and how it can also be an economic case for Europe. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it is very, it's good that you are there, that you're there for the interests of our industry. I think one of the important messages that we have for you is consistency in policies. That's far the most important thing. So consistency in every country, we see it happening. Just a last question, if I can ask you, there's all sorts of specialists and experts in the room. What can we do here to help you in your work?
I think it is, I mean, this is exactly the message that you said, that is important, that this is not just because the EU has declared a target and that we want to stick to the target, but the importance of regulatory stability, predictability, not punishing the first movers, showcasing that the transition works, showcasing that this is an economic case, that together the use of energy, here electricity in place of the imported fossil fuels, but also the availability of the products on the market, that this is a transition that goes in one direction, and that the most important thing is that we enable that transition rather than changing the course because of results of particular elections. So I think that voice from the industry of the type of yes we can is the most important for us as regulators.
Yeah. Can I thank you so much? It's very reassuring that you're there, and good luck from all of Gothenburg to Geneva. And I don't know if you will be virtually with us for the next session, which will be very interesting about trucks. But see you next time. Thank you so much, Jan DUSIK.
Thank you, and good luck to all of us. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, Sander, we're going to talk about trucks. You're going to do a very interesting panel, but just yeah. I know. I like it because, you know, he says he's not into EVs, but he asks such good questions that I really like that.
Don't flatter.
No. Just to get, you know, to this new truck topic, there's one Mentimeter question, and I'd like to answer you this. What do you see as the biggest barrier to a sustainable business model for electric trucks? Would you mind answering that? Because that would be a really good input for, you know, the next panel session.
Yeah.
And we see everything on zero. Let's see who is the first.
Yeah.
I think, what do you think?
Yesterday was the Germans who were the first.
Yeah. But now there's no one. Oh, lack of charging.
Charging infrastructure.
Yeah. Wow. I think what the difficult thing with you is that all the things are like barriers. So
yeah.
I wish you good luck with your panel.
It's hard to define the biggest of them.
Yeah, it is.
But, well, apparently it's not that hard because there's a clear number one.
Yeah.
The charging infrastructure is the main barrier.
Okay, can I leave you here then? And
you can leave me.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you so much.
Good luck.
So, as said, we're focusing on the trucks, the business model behind it. And we're going to talk about that with three executives of truck producing companies. I will interview them there in the panel, but first they will introduce themselves a little bit through a short pitch. I would like to give the floor to the first one. That's Karin RÅDSTRÖM. She's CEO of Daimler. Give her a warm welcome. We are electric energy.
10 years ago, I was actually living in Nairobi, in Kenya. I was also working in the truck industry, not in Daimler Truck, where I work today, but in one of the Swedish companies, also not the one who is hosting us here in Gothenburg, so another one. And I really loved my job. I loved the industry, I loved the customers and the people. But when I was living there, you know, I really experienced running into people who have, you might say, real problems. So I saw social injustice for sure, and of course also the big effects of climate change that you see, especially I would say in Africa already today. So I thought to myself, you know what, I love this industry and everything, but what should I do with my future? Maybe I should do something more meaningful where I can be part of changing society. But then kind of exactly at the same time, sustainability started rolling into the corporate world. And I realized after considering some different options in the UN and some other places that this is probably the most important place for me to be and where I can make the biggest difference. So really happy to be here today and talk about how we can make this transformation a success. And maybe also what I see happening, which is not really running in the direction of making this transformation a success, because I think we need to do things quite different from how we're doing them right now. So, why is this important? Well, maybe I start with this one. I think many of you know, it was already mentioned that heavy trucks and buses stand for 7% of the CO2 emissions in the EU. So for sure, we are part of the problem, but we also want to be part of the solution. We have some tough CO2 reduction targets on us, which makes sense when we are part of the problem. We have to reduce the CO2 by 2025 by -15% and by 2030 by 45%. And it's pretty hefty fines for us if we don't reach that. So I think for every percent that we as a manufacturer miss, we will have to pay to the EU around 150 to 180 million euros. So what's needed? Well, this is, first of all, a slide that makes me really, really proud. This is Daimler Truck's global lineup of electric trucks and buses. We have 11 models already in series production, everything from the light-duty e-Canter that we introduced already in 2017. We have electric school buses for the US. We have, of course, the e-Citaro, our electric city bus, which is quite seen all over Europe already today. The e-Cascadia for the American market, and of course the e-Iconic and the e-Actros, which is our flagship trucks for electrifying the European market. And if it were that easy that you just have to put the electric trucks on the road, I think we would be in a really good place. But the challenge is we don't just need the trucks. And we often talk about this formula, which describes what it takes for our customers to transition from running a diesel truck to running an electric truck. And I think all of you who did some math in school, you know that if you have 3 factors and one of the factors is 0, then you end up with 0, which means the customers will not transition. So the 3 factors where nothing can be 0 is, of course, the product. You need to have the truck available. I just show you that we have that, and I know my colleagues who will come up on this stage also do. The second is the cost parity. So we have very rational customers who buy trucks with their wallets, not with their hearts so much. So they need to see that it makes sense to transition to an electric truck from a diesel. There we are somewhere in between. DUSIK mentioned the EU vignette, which is a very positive thing that helps cost parity because it's actually a differentiation of the road toll between zero-emission trucks and diesel trucks. So to give a positive example from Germany, If you drive an electric truck, you pay nothing for the MOUT, the road toll, while for a diesel truck, you pay around 30-35 cents. This is actually something that we see already today drives the customers more towards electrified trucks because the cost parity starts to be there. Unfortunately, this directive is not really rolled out in most of the European countries, and most trucks are running not just on Autobahn in Germany, but also to France, to Spain, to Portugal. So I think it's a great regulation, unfortunately not fully implemented. And then, as was already revealed in the question before, the big challenge is the infrastructure. We have made calculations in ASEA together with the other OEMs that we need around 35,000 charging points for heavy-duty trucks by 2030. Today in Europe, we have around 1,000. So this means we need to build 500 charge points per month from now until 2030 to get to the 35,000. And let's just say we are not quite at that speed. And I think what's important to talk about later in the panel is we need to make sure that all parts of that equation come together, because actually today it's also coming back to the minus 15%, minus 45%. The challenge we have is that we are the ones facing the penalties, but it's really hard for us as OEMs to drive the implementation of the Eurovignette into all markets and to make sure that grids are updated and infrastructure is being built. And I think this brings me to a next point, which I think we also talk more about in the panel, which is this is something that can really be dangerous for European industry. Because if we are paying fines to the EU instead of using our money to develop new innovative products and lead innovation, then we will not have an industry in Europe in a couple of years from now. So, to finish off, what needs to be done? I think very important is to look at this CO2 regulation, the minus 15, the minus 45. Most important to really connect it to the enabling conditions, so to make sure we get the TCO parity, to make sure we get the infrastructure build up that we need in order to make this happen. And then maybe, if I may say one last one, to stop having more complicated regulation on us as manufacturers. Already today, to homologate a truck, we have around 20,000 pages of different legislations that we need to comply with. So I think we need to really get into a phase of simplifying, not inventing new things that we need to comply with, and we need to come together to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place. With that, I will hand over to Olof, my colleague from IVECO, for the next short impulse speech.
Good morning, everyone. It's absolutely fantastic being back in Gothenburg. It's very much a home turf to me, and it's also, of course, a city and a cluster where a lot of innovation around transportation has been in the past and will continue to be also in the future. I'm just going to use a few minutes talking about this. How do we actually create a sustainable business model for electric vehicles? Because that is something, at the end of the day, coming back what Karin just said as well, how do we create now the market end of it? First of all, it's the ESG strategy is these days completely integrated in the corporate world. It's integrated in everything we do in IVECO, and we have been pretty bold saying that we will be and committed to be carbon neutral by 2040, which is actually 10 years ahead of the EU regulation. Now, that means also, since 99% of our sort of ESG and CO2 footprint is coming from our vehicle in use, that we need to change the root and the branches of how we do business, both internally, but in particular then on the market side. So, you know, as anyone in the industry, we have invested enormous amount of the last 5 to 10 years in order to support the energy transition, support the transformation from the old way of actually propelling vehicles into the new one. We have really, and I think this is an important message from our side as well, electrification will be an absolute main driver when it comes to support the CO2 reduction, but there are a lot of other technologies as well. Hydrogen is one, biomethane is another. It is about not sort of locking in too much on one technology, but making sure that the totality of technologies brings us to the target that we all want to be. And therefore we have, of course, a full lineup as well, like any other of the manufacturers, but we also then continue to invest in the combustion engine in terms of being prepared for all the different types of fuel that also can be CO2 neutral or even CO2 negative. Another investment we have done, and we have been working on this for the last 3 or 4 years, is what we call the gate. And the gate is an ecosystem. And this is our way of sort of really supporting the customer that wants to make the transitions into the, in this case, the electrification journey. Because one thing we saw is that there are a lot of uncertainty in our customers when it comes to shifting over the fleets from the traditional into the new world. And we saw those questions that was up there voting on. Those questions are exactly the questions that our customer, how is the residual value? What is the long-term validity? How do I make sure that my TCO, my business case goes together? So GATE is a sort of peace of mind type of setup where we actually offer pay by use, pay per mileage, pay by kilometer in terms for, and everything is taken care of for the customer. So they basically just go in, they get the vehicle, and then they pay how much they're going to use it and get all the services included. We just recently then formed up, and I think this is also an interesting part of the discussion, with a partner. So we have a financial partner in DLL, which is a subsidiary belonging to Rabobank, who actually then support us, also have the vision about supporting customers going forward in this endeavor. And we have great expectation. This is now in Italy, and it's in Germany, France, and it will be rolled out to different countries. We're starting with the light commercial vehicles, but we will then also later this year go into the heavy duty. So I think this is one of the ways of creating a market that makes sense, because at the end of the day, the market has to make sense. So to summarize a little bit the messages, well, I think one is that totally committed to the energy transition. Our message is that electrification will be the main driver, definitely, but we truly believe that there are areas and there are things that we need to look at when it comes to other fuels, other ways of comparing this and proceeding with the transition that we want to say. Because at the end of the day, nature doesn't really care where the CO2 reduction comes from. What nature cares about is that it actually happens, and it happens as quick as possible. And we have a lot of experience. We have a lot of experience from the past. We now collecting even more experience, and we have to make very sure that we now roll out this as quick and as efficient, and thereby also having the discussions with the legislation, with EU, how can we do this? How sit down and review to really making sure that the map and reality fits together. Because if the map and reality doesn't fit together, the tendency is that reality wins. And I think we have a discrepancy now between the map and the reality, and we need to sit down and discuss around this. So that is my few points on this, and I'm looking forward to the panel discussions a little bit later. And with that, I continue to move on with the baton. Thank you.
Said, ooh, girl, you shock me like an electric eel. Baby girl, you turn me on with your electric feel. Said, ooh.
So good morning to you all. Volvo Group, we have been at the forefront of electrifying our industry for a decade now. We started with city buses, and then we have taken the products into trucks, into construction machines. And we have a broad offering, as you can see on this slide here, in Europe and in North America. And this is serial production. We are far beyond any kind of demo or pilot program. Take Volvo Trucks as one example here. To date, Volvo Trucks has delivered more than 5,000 battery electric trucks across the globe, 50 countries. And make no mistakes now, 5,000 may sound like a low figure. But the difference between passenger cars and commercial vehicles is that we design the vehicles to be used. And that means that we are clocking kilometers like crazy. And these 5,000 vehicles, they have clocked 170 million kilometers or 4,000 laps around the globe, so almost 1 lap per vehicle. By that, they have reduced CO2 emissions with 125,000 tons already. This fleet of trucks, also combined with all other Volvo Group vehicles, all in all 1.7 million connected vehicles, is gathering data that is providing us with invaluable insights on how the vehicles are being used. We use advanced analytics, AI, to analyze all this data, to understand how our customers are using the vehicles. Truck routes, loading capacities, refueling, recharging stops, kilometers driven, where they go for service, where they park, and how often they park. These insights, they guide us in our discussions when we are helping our customers to decarbonize, but it's also, of course, fantastic value to my engineers. Selling electric trucks, as we have learned it, is much more like project sales instead of selling just another vehicle. We are acting very much as consultants to our customers, and in many cases, customers on their decarbonization journey. We believe firmly, and we see that electrification in our industry will happen segment by segment. For example, already today, there is no reason for any city to go for anything else than battery electric city buses. The same goes for refuse and garbage collectors. Next step, that is very logical, is city distribution and regional haul, where we already have vehicles. Next year, we will then take next step and we will launch a heavy-duty truck more suitable for long-haul operations. And we will have almost 800 kilowatt hours of electric energy on board on that vehicle. We have had and we have the ambition to lead this electrification journey. Not only by selling vehicles, but also lead the way in how we are applying electric vehicles in our own logistic flows. We are, of course, a big transport buyer as well, besides manufacturer of vehicles. So together with our transport partners, we have now implemented over 150 battery electric trucks transporting goods in our logistic flows. And we have learned so much. Main learning is that you cannot just replace a diesel vehicle with an electric vehicle and hope for the best. You must rethink your logistical flows. You have to dare to challenge your status quo. We have designed transport routes. We have organized fleet schedules to ensure that we are charging the trucks while the drivers are having their short breaks, when they are unloading, when they are reloading. We have even introduced, like shown on this slide, a sort of relay system where two trucks, they meet, they charge, and they swap trailers mid-shift. This system is now applied in a number of green corridors across Europe. And besides massive CO2 reductions, it also offers significant social benefits. Because if you think about it, these drivers, they come home at night. With this knowledge coming from our green corridors, we can now guide our customers and customers' customers to adopt similar practices. This is what is needed to stimulate, accelerate uptake. Megawatt charging will enable the drivers to charge to a very high level during just a 45-minute break. So the vehicles are here. Society has started to move, but it goes too slow, just as Karin and Olof was into. I want to share with you now the latest European heavy-duty trucks registrations. So during first quarter of this year, 1.5% of the heavy-duty trucks registered in Europe was zero emission. 98.5% represents something else, majority diesel. This is embarrassing. This is far from the goals that you saw Karin talking about and Olof talking about. Goals of that we will need around 35% of zero-emission vehicles by 2030, and today we are at 1.5%. So the glass is half empty. It can be half full as well. If you look at the data per country, there are some positive highlights. For example, Switzerland, almost 11%, followed by Norway, 9%. Sweden, 7.5%, and Netherlands on 6%. How comes that these four countries are sticking out from the rest? We see that these four countries has been long-term when it comes to well-functioning incentive systems. Switzerland, my favorite country in this aspect, in particular then has implemented this with road tax, a system with usage-based incentives. Super clear, no road tax for zero-emission vehicles. Zero for zero, it's even simple to remember. The polluting technology pays for the transition. That is what is necessary, smart and simple. It is possible for every country in Europe to get to 11% tomorrow if they want to. And with usage-based incentives, you get rid of all administration and lead times when it comes to applications for investment support and investment incentives. And for Brussels, I think it's rather interesting and worth reflecting on that gold and silver medal on the podium here goes to two non-EU countries. What a challenge. We would welcome much more initiatives like this, countries across Europe. Together, we can drive this transition. It can happen. And I really look forward to continue the discussion up on stage with Karin and Olof. So welcome back together with Sander for the panel.
Thank you, Mr. STENQVIST. Have a seat. Yeah, you make it sound rather simple.
I say it's possible, but there are some guys that need to start to move.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah. And what you say, it is an embarrassment that it's two non-EU members who are leading.
Yeah, I think we should say that Switzerland and Norway, they have understood what to do, but there are some other countries in Europe that need to step up.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Can I ask the two of you, is it really as simple as Mr. STENQVIST describes?
There is nothing simple with this.
No, but it feels like he is slightly more positive and has a slightly more straight road ahead compared to your story.
Well, I would say, I mean, technologically, there is no challenge. We know exactly what needs to be done. It's not like sending, you know, people to the moon in the 60s. So it's just about building infrastructure and putting the regulation in place. So yes, it is rather simple, but for some reason, it's not happening.
And I think it's super clear to say that what I've said is that it's rather easy for every country in Europe to get to the 10-11%.
Yeah.
But to get to the 35 that we need by 2030, exactly as Karin said, we are in full agreement that we need 35,000 fast chargers dedicated to commercial vehicles.
Yeah.
And today we are 1,000.
Yeah.
So if we want it to happen for real, 35%, 2030, then we need them.
Yeah. So just from my understanding, how much more expensive is an electric truck compared to a conventional?
It
How much are we talking about?
We are not saying a percentage because it's very dependent on what kind
It's
of
sensitive
application.
information.
No, but it's more that we see that we have customers that definitely can say that this is a good initiative from a commercial perspective.
Yeah.
But as I was into, don't just go for the simple solution of replacing a diesel truck with an electric and try to use it the same way.
Yeah.
Of course, it's more expensive, so what do you need to do? You should clock more kilometers.
Yeah.
So how do you set up your flows where you use your electric vehicles?
Yeah.
We have a lot of customers showing a positive use case for certain applications. Other applications, it's impossible today.
So you need to make sure that the truck drives more.
Yeah, and used at the right form of transport.
Yeah. So the number one barrier that the audience saw was the charging infrastructure. Mr. Persson, who should take the lead in improving that?
Well, I think at the end of the day, there has to be a number of players that has to look into and see how do you create a business model of that. I mean, the sheer size of the challenge we have, I don't think we should underestimate it. First of all, we are sitting at midsummer 2025. Before we know it, we're buying Christmas gifts for 2025, and then we're into 2026. 2030 is basically around the corner.
Yeah.
It goes very quick, right?
Yeah.
And what the sheer amount of energy, if you take what the European truck fleet use in energy today coming from predominantly diesel, you calculate that how much electricity do you need to get out of that? The amount of energy that is actually consumed on a daily basis of the hundreds of thousands of fleet that we have now has to be transferred into. But the business case of doing that, I think that's something that needs to be pushed forward. But I mean, at the end of the day, it has to make business sense. Another thing, coming back to your point, is of course the maintenance. I mean, we see now that we can see on our IVECO daily, maintenance cost is going down by 30%. You have on the heavy duty 10% down. So there is a lot of positive things coming with the product, but it's revenue generating tools. I mean, those needs to be out there and be a good business case and a total cost of ownership. And I think we're getting there, but the investments needs to be done. And it has to be realistic. I talked about the map. Reality is where we stand a few thousands. We need to be, tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands charging stations.
Yep.
That is the map, and reality needs to be aligned with that.
But I think it's very important for the audience also to understand that we are not sitting here crying. We are not arguing for less strict regulations. It would be super simple.
But are you actually asking for more strict regulation?
But because we are investing fortune, we're investing billions into this technology, really. And that means that what must be in place
I
is
think
the infrastructure.
Mrs. RÅDSTRÖM, she was actually asking for less regulation.
Yeah, but I mean, I did not question the CO2 regulation, but to be honest, there is a lot of funny EU regulation which is not modern, which does not drive innovation, and which does not improve road safety. And we were actually talking about one yesterday. We have one, for instance, with direct vision from the cab. So you change exactly the angle that the driver needs to see, which means we all have to invest into new cab, which is a couple of 100 million. It does not improve road safety. You could put 2 sensors at the front of the cab, which would be more efficient. So it's not about reducing, I would say, CO2 there. I mean, that's why I'm in this industry, to be part of that change. But you have to understand there is a lot of noise with funny, and I mean, not completely useless, but in parallel to electrification, we have Euro 7, so we have to all develop new generation diesel engine in parallel to electrifying. So it's just like, and I think it's sometimes different parts of the EU, the different DGs running different regulations, and it doesn't really come together until you get
There's
to
a lack
von
of
der Leyen.
coordination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
So,
what I was referring to. So now we have what we have, and of course we are all prepared to be compliant in Europe also in the future. But to really spend the next years rather on making the map and reality come together than to sit and think of new interesting regulations.
Yeah. Because what you mentioned is, of course, also the fact that Europe is leading when it comes to trucks, but that this lack of speed when it comes to electrification might actually jeopardize that position.
Exactly.
Is that something you both also feel? And how realistic is that we as Europeans are losing our head position, our top position?
Again, it's come back to, I think the sheer task of changing something that has been diesel-based or oil-based for so long, getting into a completely new system, it's a massive task. And this massive task takes time. It is not just about getting a few charging stations. It's about rethinking a whole system.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, we who work in the industry understands how delicate the transport industry is, how really thin and how extremely interactive and efficient it is for us to get the milk we want to have every morning in the shop.
Yeah.
And just shifting that around, saying that let's go with something else, means that we have to do it together. And we need to make sure that we do step by step in the right way in order to get the most efficient one of it. So not just one is running that direction, another one is running that direction, because it has to be integrated. It has to be a combined effort. And that, I think, is not so much the target. Everyone is committed about this. But it's the way how to get there and how we do it the most efficient way, and who is actually then, stepping up and start to get the business cases together, because we need to get the financials going along with this as well.
Yeah. So, can you name the key factors that are influencing this TCO? What are quick wins? I mean, we can all complain about government and rules, but what are the quick wins you see in the next coming years that you, as producers, can do with your customers or your grid operators, the people that you communicate with?
What I see clearly, I got the question yesterday, do you miss any kind of regulation? We shouldn't have any more regulations at all. What we need to is, we need to stimulate demand. And you stimulate demand for zero emission if you make sure that there is a difference between using fossil fuel or zero emission. Meaning that, and the best and the smartest way is to use it usage-based, as a road tax, as MAUT, because we have seen examples like in Germany.
But this is the EU vignette that you spoke of.
But to get it implemented for real, and that you get a real difference in between. Yeah. The investment incentives that we had in Germany a few years ago with long lead times, they actually slowed down the transition. Yeah. But if you just get zero road tax, that will stimulate. Yeah. But then you need infrastructure.
Yeah. Okay, but so if you have the example of, for example, Switzerland with your 0-0, it's easy to remind, even I managed. So why are we not implementing that in the rest of Europe if it's such a clear example of something that works?
We don't know.
No, but there must be somebody blocking that.
You said we don't need more regulation, and I said it too. But this is, in fact, an example where we have the regulation, but it's not being implemented.
Yeah, but then there's a reason for that. Or am I naive? This is just one. Yeah, we don't have Mr. DUSIK anymore to ask. But do you have an answer to that, Mr. Persson?
No, I don't. And I think that is, we produce in vehicles. We make sure the technology is there. We do try to stimulate the demand based on our products and services. And then, of course, the legislation is something that, other people are taking care of. So.
But you communicate. You have a communication with the European Commission. You interact with them.
Yeah.
I think
this is on this country level.
Member states.
So the EU vignette is decided, but there is a lot of regulation that's decided and then either not implemented in all member states or implemented differently. Yeah. And I think, why is it not implemented? Probably because it's important tax money that they need.
So some countries need it for their revenue. Yeah.
And the same for he mentioned also AFIR, which is the infrastructure regulation, which is unfortunately less ambitious than we need to get to our CO2 targets, but even with the ambition in that directive, it's not implemented in the member states. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the challenge that we have.
You all watched the speech of Mr. DUSIK. Yeah, does that offer any comfort?
I must say, I would
You're laughing way too hard here.
I would have hoped to have him in the panel because he was super positive when it comes to the build out of infrastructure. And I would gladly offer him a ride. I could drive. We could drive through Europe to try to charge electric trucks. He was far too positive. So we need to teach him.
He was far too positive. Yeah. But then again, you say it's the member states who actually are able to block all of this. So then it's up to the national. I mean, it's obviously it's painful that it's two non-EU member states who are leading the way, but it's also two very rich countries. So apparently they don't need the revenue that you're mentioning.
No, they are balancing the revenue. They let the polluters pay. Okay. Every country can balance this. Let the polluter pay.
Yeah, and that has no disadvantage for poor countries.
It's a balance.
Yeah.
It's a balance. It's not a finance issue.
Mr. Persson, you mentioned a discrepancy between the roadmap and reality. Can you explain that a bit further? Because I was curious what the discrepancy
I think
is.
it's basically the timing, exactly what we are discussing here in terms of meeting the intermediate targets in order to reach the final targets. And if you look at it, the anticipated hockey stick in charging stations, in regulations, in all the other aspects of actually getting this type of targets to 2030 in place.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to sit down. Is that really realistic, that map, based on the reality we sit on right now? Is this something that we believe that, the society really can step up and do?
Yeah.
Because this is
There's too much wishful thinking.
Well, it is. A map is a map, and I think it's absolutely. But if you're not on the right path on the map, then, as I said, reality has a tendency to win at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And we need to see how can we do more, how can we do better, how can we do more together. How can we make sure that we actually push this forward and are everyone on the same page? And this is something we just need to sit down and discuss. And that dialogue, because if you want to change something in society as big as we're trying to do, it cannot be only the manufacturers do it. It has to be the totality of the society that actually drive it exactly the same way and in the same pace.
Yeah.
And this is something I think we need to sit down and discuss and have that open discussion, not based on legal, saying that we all agree about the targets. I'm getting really, aggregated on it. We all agree on the target, but how the heck do we get there?
Yeah.
Most efficient way. Do we use, is it the only way, only electrification? Can we actually use the certified biomethane to actually help the nature to get the CO2 down? Because EU produced billions of cubic meter of certified biomethane, which we have gas engines that we can run on, which is basically coming from the farmers, farmer waste, which at the end of the day almost is CO2 negative if you use that properly.
Yeah.
Is there other ways of doing with it? So,
yeah.
I think this is the I'm talking too much now. So.
No. So
okay, I'm sitting back.
Of course, we're sitting here with 3 truck builders, so they, of course, feel like we're doing our best. We try to do our share, play our part. So let's go to the infrastructure. What investments are needed there, and how can you, as truck builders, sort of positively influence investments there?
I mean, we actually started a company, joint venture, Traton, Volvo, Daimler Truck. We founded Milans, who are also here in this conference, to exactly kickstart the infrastructure because we really want to drive that change. Yeah. So that's one initiative. There we have the aim to build 1,700 charging stations. But of course, much more is needed. And what I think would help is, you mentioned before, Lars, it's not so effective to have these subsidy programs for trucks, because what happens, and I think it was the same in the Netherlands, in Germany, it's like you have a program, everyone applies, it takes a long time to understand who gets the subsidies, and then no one is purchasing trucks. They wait for the next subsidy program, and you get this very strange, actually, delay in the take-up. But on the infrastructure side, we're now in this situation where we talk, of course, to startups, to the old kind of Shells and BPs and so on, who, of course, also realize they need to transition from gas stations to electric. But for them, it's like too early because the population of truck is too small. And our customers don't transition because the infrastructure isn't there. So I think we need to have this phase where maybe there could be some kind of subsidy or whatever you want to call it to just make sure that you're not punished for making that investment early. And then, of course, in the long run, it has to be commercially viable and driven through private players. But the phase we're in now, where we need this very quick ramp up, I think it would be helpful to support the infrastructure build out.
And I mean, how much of this issue is a land use issue? I mean, you have the Raststätte, the how you call it, gas stations, of course, the actual property.
Truck stops.
Yeah, truck stops. You can't just double the amount of truck stops overnight. So how big is that? How big part of the problem is this issue?
Land usage is one, permissions is another one, to get permissions, but also then capacity in the electrical grid. It's not a given that you have the capacity in the grid exactly where you have a truck stop today.
No.
This is also one of the reasons why we also all are talking about different solutions. It will not only be battery electric. Olof has been into it, you were into it as well. So combustion engines will play a role. Fuel cell electric vehicles on hydrogen will play a role, because it is not easy for any country or any region or every city to provide charging capacity for all these trucks going forward. So I think compared to passenger cars, you will see much more of a broad variety of propulsion technologies in our industry for the long run. Not for just a few more years, for a very long run. And the charging capacity is one of those reasons.
It sounds like this issue begs for private-public cooperation. Do you think that is happening enough? Can you name some initiatives? Are there any?
I mean, there is, so the answer is it's happening. There are some. Is it enough? No. And maybe to give one positive example, in Baden-Württemberg, which is the Bundesland where we are based, we work together with the government and with the Netze BW, so the net provider, and we will invest 120 million, I think, to build this, to improve the grid, so we can build, I think, 120 megawatt charging stations in the next 8 years. So we really do that, but it's just not enough, and the speed is not fast enough if we really mean seriously that we want to take away this 7% of CO2 that our industry represents.
I think those are very good examples on you know, how we can engage in, which we are not used to, because I mean we were not running gas stations in the past. You know, we're getting much more integrated into areas where we didn't used to do as an OEM manufacturer. But another way of doing it is, as I discussed, is also to try to, when we're selling, take away the sort of insecurity around the electrification vehicles and offer a complete hassle-free, peace of mind type of solution. Because there is a lot of customer out there who wants to transform into it. But they have a business to run, and that business has to make money. They have to serve their customers, and you know. But those kind of things we can offer as an OEM as well. Try to package together more, you know, attractive solutions to tick off those issues. That is, and I think the charging station is of course one way. Gate is another. So there's a lot of initiatives going on. Definitely. Again, pace. That's
I think another positive example, speaking of how we need to think different, is of course we also have customers who have invested in infrastructure in their own depots. So what we do now, and I'm sure you guys do similar things, is like as Daimler Truck, we connect with those customers and we open up like a semi-public charging network. So the customers can go to each other to charge. And then we try to
and
make
they
that
can
easier.
even make a business model out of it.
Exactly.
No, and I think we see it, you hear from all the three of us, that it is a different ball game to sell these vehicles, and it's more of system sales, project sales.
Also
where
kind of fun,
need,
it sounds.
you need to help the customers, also charging infrastructure.
Yeah, yeah. And you were already mentioning Baden-Württemberg. That's the name of the province, and Holland, my country. So we're going to those two. I would like to thank you so much for your contribution to this panel. Please give them an extra round of applause. Thank you so much. Yeah, I would like to introduce somebody from my own country. Her name is Petrouschka WERTHER. She's the Deputy Director General for Mobility at the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management in the Netherlands. Please welcome her to the stage with a round of applause. There she is. Shall we sit down? Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Gothenburg. How would you portray, how would you characterize the transition of the Netherlands? How is it going?
Yeah, well, actually, I was waiting to jump in because what we have been doing for the past 20 years, I think, is trying to build up markets and always working together with cities, regions, and companies in the Netherlands, just to see how we can skip the chicken and egg dilemma, and how we can make ambitions that are stronger and go further than everything we think is available. But once we start to work on it with each other, we actually achieve more than we thought.
Yeah, and if you look at the top 4, we're just under the top 3.
I was very glad. Thank you very much for mentioning the Netherlands.
Yeah, that was sweet of them. They didn't need to do that, but okay. The thing with our little country is, of course, that it's so little. So that you would say, yeah, Holland should be number 1 and not Norway, which is huge, because we have so small distances. So our country is perfect for electrical trucks.
It is perfect, actually, and I'm very hopeful that we will be doing very well.
Yeah.
A lot of the policy that was mentioned is already being implemented in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
The road user charge, the toll for heavy-duty vehicles.
Yeah, tell me a bit about the toll system you have in Holland.
Yeah, well, we don't have it yet, but we've been preparing it. It will actually be implemented in July next year.
Yeah.
And we don't have a 0 for 0 because we're Dutch.
We don't like zeros.
We don't like zeros. We want the money, but we have an 80% discount for zero-emission trucks.
Yeah.
And all the money from the toll will go into a fund, and the money from in the fund will go to subsidies for electric trucks, but also for the charging.
Yeah. And what we do know in Holland for a long time are these environmental zones in cities.
Correct. Yeah.
How effective are they?
Well, they are very effective for the air quality, and they are actually a base also for zero-emission zones for city logistics. But I think that's another scheme to build a market for electric vans and for electric trucks.
Yeah.
And as of this year, in 30 cities in the Netherlands, if you buy a new truck or van, it needs to be zero emission. So that is actually building up the market. And we're also phasing out Euro 4.
Yeah.
And the cities have been very active because it's very important for the air quality in the cities.
Yeah.
And the companies have been positive as well. We have been preparing this for 7 years. And actually the new government that started last year just wanted to postpone the introduction of the zones.
Yeah.
3 months
They've
before
been postponing quite a bit. Yeah.
3 months before they were going to start in January this year, they wanted to postpone it. And then all the parties that we had been working together have sent a letter to Parliament to ask them, please do not postpone this policy, because you have to really work with the the companies that have already invested.
Yeah, we can't start over.
You can't start over, and if you postpone it, you really say to the people who have not invested, oh well, that's a very good thing to do. We really want to be positive towards.
It's rewarding bad behavior.
Yeah, you want to reward the good behavior. Yes,
and that worked.
It did work. Yeah, so we have started in January, and the thing I usually compare what we are doing as we are together in an escape room.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's because the whole transition towards zero emission vehicles, it's never been done.
You need to collaborate. For those who don't know what an escape room is.
Yes,
like
you have
me.
to. Oh, yeah. If you're in an escape room with a group, family group, or your colleagues, you have to solve a lot of puzzles, and all the clues are in different parts of the room.
Okay.
And every time you find a clue, you have to shout out to the people who are in the room with you. Oh, I find a clue. Who has the other part of the clue, so we can work out.
This is a great way of governing, I'd say.
Yes, and it's actually
just put these CEOs in a escape room with the commission and just only open the door when they solved it.
Yeah, well, that's one way to go.
Food.
Yeah, yeah, well, maybe that's something we should propose.
Yeah,
yes, but
maybe.
We are in the virtual escape room.
Yeah, okay.
And sharing everything that's difficult, but also the solutions you find, I think it's the way forward.
Yeah. What are the bottlenecks? Because it's not all
bottlenecks
great in Holland.
Are financing.
Yeah.
And also the grid capacity. We have been focusing on the development of vehicles.
But I did hear here that the grid capacity is a major issue in Holland, but then I heard from some Dutch people who said like, yeah, but that's only because we're transparent about it. Other countries, they sort of hide it, that they have the same problem.
That would be very informative to know, because sometimes I think,
well,
is it just a Dutch problem, or are we so far ahead that we have found this problem earlier than others?
Yeah.
But the thing is, the moment we saw that it was an issue, everybody just started to help to solve it. And this is, we have a task force with ministries in the Netherlands, but also with the grid companies. And we have a special task force, for instance, with the logistics. And we can see that because the cars have such big batteries that we can actually help to balance the system as well. Yeah. So we can be part of the solution.
Yeah. There is a so-called EU Automotive Action Plan. How do you value that?
Well, I'm not very positive about it, because I am afraid that it will show a bit of hesitance, where we need to step up and really go for the next steps of the implementation.
You feel it's too conservative?
Yeah, it's a bit conservative.
Yeah.
And it's hard enough sometimes in a country to commit to achieving the European policies or doing something extra like building the demand. Yeah. And if then in a European level you feel that steps are taken backwards, it's not supportive of the national policies.
Yeah. One sector that we haven't really discussed yet is the construction equipment. Yeah. Because there's a lot of heavy machines going around there as well. That has been a topic for you in the Netherlands. How come, and what do you do with that?
Yes, well, actually, I think that is a very Dutch issue. We have a nitrogen problem in the Netherlands. Yeah. And one way to solve it is to tackle the NOx emissions from the building machines, from the construction engines. And with all the public procurement, we now demand like a 30% zero emission building construction. And what we see is that sometimes the machines are there, sometimes we can retrofit diesel engines, but we would really want like European mandate or European plan to increase the building up of all the vehicles that we need. So we can, the construction equipment, to drive the prices down as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And they have been reliable, and they have the same amount of power.
Yes, they even have more power.
Okay.
It's sometimes the question how to get the power there, but we are working on that as well.
Yeah.
And what we find is very positive is that it's quiet for the people who work with it.
Yeah, that's
And
nice.
the people who are working on the building
site,
place
yeah.
on site, the air quality is much better, so it's
Yeah.
healthier as well. Yes.
What do you think is the thing you're doing in Holland, which is the best, which you can sort of easily transport to other countries? What you can teach to other countries?
Face the facts. Get all the parties in the room.
The escape room
Yeah,
again.
make a map together,
Yeah.
but also, and I really agree with that, if it goes different than you think, be flexible and see how you can work it out together.
Yeah. So the good old polder.
A very good old polder, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ellen, over to you.
I love the idea of this escape room. I think next
Yeah.
EVS should be one big escape room.
Yeah.
We're going to go to the last speaker of today.
Yeah.
And we're going to move to Baden-Württemberg. And we're going to see how the escape room works in the German perspective. So I'd
Yeah.
like to welcome on
German
stage
escape room.
Mr. Minister Winfried HERMANN. He's the State Minister of Transport of Baden-Württemberg. Very welcome, and give him a big hand.
Shock me like an electric eel, baby girl. You turn me on with your electric feel.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of electric mobility. Maybe you know, Germany is made up of 16 federal states. One of the biggest and most prosperous states is my home, Baden-Württemberg. You heard already. Located in the southwest of Germany, we are home to one of the largest automotive clusters across Germany and Europe, with more than 1,000 suppliers and manufacturers. Some of the biggest, like Mercedes, Porsche, Bosch, or Daimler Truck, are more well-known than our state itself. Indeed, Baden-Württemberg is maybe not a catchy name. That's why we call us the land. For decades, the automotive sector in the land has been the powerhouse of our economy. This industry accounts for 400,000 jobs. The success of the electric and digital automotive revolution is a key factor for our state, for our wealth, for a future-proof industry, and a key for achieving the state's climate goal, becoming net zero by 2040. The government of the land actively shape and support the big transformation. As you know, Germany has a new federal government. The new coalition has committed to the national climate targets. This is an important signal in these times. Although personally, as a Green Party politician, I would hope for more ambitious climate actions. However, I welcome the new push for charging infrastructure funding. It is the right step that the national government announces new tax incentives for EVs. Indeed, over the past 2 years, electric mobility has gone through a challenging time in Germany, especially in Germany. The industry has been struggling with global impacts like the worldwide overproduction of cars and the economic recession. But the German debate around questioning the end of combustion engines significantly damaged development. In the face of the ongoing climate crisis, we have no time to waste talking about e-fuels as the holy savior of the combustion car. There is a risk of a rollback, which we must prevent. And despite all these difficulties, one thing is very clear. Electric mobility is here to stay and is an established force in the global market. More and more new electric cars and trucks are hitting the market and the roads. The EV registrations in Germany are rising again since the beginning of the year. You see it here on the chart. Electric mobility worldwide will keep growing quickly, especially in China. Europe needs to keep pace in this transformation. And Europe has great chances to do so if we stick to the ambitious climate regulations, if we build our own raw material chains beyond China, if we intensify the research and development of battery cells and recycling technologies, if we establish a framework that is good for zero-emission cars, and if our manufacturers finally bring cheaper and smaller EVs to the market. And there is another big task, we heard already. The risk is the charging infrastructure. In the land, we have one of the densest EV charging networks in Germany. It is comparable to the system in the Netherlands or France. However, we need a reliable charging infrastructure all across Europe. No matter if people are traveling in Spain or in Poland, no matter if they are on vacation or on a business trip, citizens should always be able to rely on user-friendly charging options. Whereas the electrification of passenger cars is moving forward, even too slowly, the journey for electric trucks has just begun. OEMs have launched a range of electric light and heavy-duty trucks. We have seen it already yesterday and today. The charging infrastructure now needs a fast and ambitious ramp-up. Depot charging solutions will cover a large share of the demand, maybe 2/3 of all cases. But we also need public charging points along the main European transport corridors. Currently, the National Transport Ministry in Germany is building up a charging network along the highways, meeting the European AFIR standards. Although it is just a minimum, it's important to do that. And road infrastructure in Europe and in the land does not only consist highway. We calculate the charging demand for our state. By 2030, we will need nearly 3,000 public charging points beyond national highways. That is why the state government decided to take care of the regional charging network throughout the land. The transformation in the heavy-duty sector involves many players. That's why our government brings them together. The energy providers, they must expand the grid and supply along the growing charging network. Regions, counties, and cities must provide areas for charging parks. I'm convinced we need less competition and more cooperation. And maybe it's co-opetition helping us to find the way forward. Mainz, for example, is a good example. One thing must be clear. Every member state has the obligation to implement AFIR standards. Actually, the EU already should plan an updated AFIR too. And we also need regional charging infrastructure for electric trucks EU-wide. Dear ladies and gentlemen, if we want to meet our climate targets, e-mobility has to grow faster, especially in the truck sector. The most important thing for me is politics must set clear rules for the electric transformation for climate protection. Rules that stand firm. No rollbacks on agreed measures and technologies. We need civil society to push and to join us in the transition. We need manufacturers to finally offer affordable vehicles. And we need an energy industry to expand the charging infrastructure with support from the public sector. And we need a framework that makes our transport system that is sustainable a business case. The days of making excuses and pointing fingers at others are over. Everyone is responsible, politics, industry, and civil society. Instead of roll back, let's organize roll forward together. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the inspiring. You are also saying, you know, we need to step up together. That's what we need to do. We've got time for one last question. So I'm going to ask you, like, you know, in the light of the stagnating EV sales, and Karin from Daimler was also saying, you know, we should have sort of softer EU standards. Do you think that the regulation of the European Union have been too ambitious? Maybe if you stand here, people can, oh, you've got it, perfect.
No, the standards and the targets are not too ambitious, but sometimes the differentiated rules and the rules under the rules, they could be a hurdle. We have that, for example, by the hydro production. It's really nearly impossible to produce it in Europe under the rules of the EU.
Yeah.
And we should produce it international, and so we should change, for example, that rules.
Yeah. So I think that's so we should have a good look at it, and especially under the rules under, we should be more strict and more clear on that one.
You know, I like the European people and the departments, but sometimes I have the feeling that they don't know what the rules are in reality.
No.
And we as politicians in regions and the manager, we know what is happening.
You've got your feet on the ground.
Yes,
yeah,
and
you
so
know what it is.
They should listen to us.
I think that is a good message.
Give them a good
Go
advice.
listen to Minister.
To me and others, because then they get better.
Okay, thank you so much, and give him a warm welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.